Think for yourself. Question authority.
For the last 6 years, 7 years, I've missed a lot of things in my orchards, like apricots come on. I just saw them today. They're starting to come on, so I usually miss the apricots, miss the plums, like all the stuff that's just coming on during this particular season. So this is kind of nice for me to be home, to be able to touch the things that I planted 15 years ago. This is kind of like boot camp. You know, all the things you hear about, just the things shifting, climate change, adjustments, readjustments, realignments. We're probably going to see a lot more of these things, because right when you get in that group, you think you've got it all figured out. There's something that'll come out of left field that kind of takes you out at the knees. And why wouldn't it be microscopic? You know, you've heard people talk about ice caps melting and it releasing crazy things that we haven't seen in millennia. This could be training for that. So get used to it. Figure out what you're going to do. I started planning for this 25 years ago by planting orchards, planting vines, doing greenhouses, understanding how to reconnect. Short answer, yes. I think we're going to go through I feel like we're going to go through a lot of changes. We're going to go through a lot of growing pains. And not all of us are going to make it through those growing pains. I think that's the hardest part as a human being to really grasp, is that you might not be a part of what happens over the crest in that new valley. You just might not be there because you didn't pay attention to the basics. You didn't listen to the wind. You didn't smell the air. Simple nods, simple things. So, you know, people have kind of complimented, seen, acknowledge, or they claim. There's a lot of prophetic things that came out on Eat the Elephant, prophetic things on Inoculum, probably prophetic things on this, but it's not really prophetic. It's just understanding patterns and understanding human nature and where we're going. And so, although they might seem specific, they're not. They're human experience. And at my age, I've seen quite a few things. I've tried to keep open-minded about things, not always just assume you're right just because you're successful, and kind of reevaluate those things. I mean, even right now, like last night I had pasta with tomatoes and basil from our garden, drinking our own wine. It's one of those things that it didn't happen overnight. We had to work for that. You had to pay attention to that. You had to be in touch, because some things just don't grow everywhere. So you have to be in touch with where you are, where you're going. And I could claim, look how I was right 25 years ago when I planted that orchard and planted that garden. That's absurd. I just like planting things. It's incredible witness live. I've seen him live about 6 times. And I actually got turned on to Ahmad Jamal by my dad. Like, he had, no offense, Dad, he had the worst taste in music. Probably still does. But he had this insane, the only thing he really had was all of the Ahmad Jamal albums. And I would listen to those at a very early age. And so that artistry imprinted me earlier in terms of listening. Them listening to each other, me listening to this crazy roadmap, and then him playing me other versions of the same song and going, oh, wow. So this is a version of jazz that, of course, when you're into Kiss and Bay City Rollers, things like X, and the darker, earlier on, like the darker versions of REM, not the later stuff. Because I saw a lot of similarities in the Byrds with early REM, and there's that kind of country punk southern thing with REM and X that resonated, kind of crossing over genres in a way. They're still punk rock, but back then, every year during harvest, we have a playlist. So whatever we're doing that day, whatever we're processing, we make sure we write down. I pick a specific band or bands to be playing that day, and that's on loop the whole day. So while we're bringing the fruit in, while we're processing it, while it's settling in, and while we're running our numbers and making adjustments, that music is playing. So we write that down. So then later on, when we put blends together, we make sure that on the tasting notes we have what bands we're playing. Every year, Blonde Redhead gets its own day. It just goes around almost like an uncontrollable emotional spiral, but it lands where it's supposed to land and punches where it's supposed to punch, to keep you grounded. There's an anchor in it. So it's almost like not tamed chaos, but tamed chaos. So when I was in choir, we had Ann Johnson was our choir teacher, and we would start with warm-ups. Like, so if you're in a class and we're singing songs for maybe 1/4 of the class. The rest of the class is her on the piano playing a note. She'd play that note, she would put her hand here, and then you would sing that note. And then she would then go like this, finger off the piano, making you go with the steps that she's doing. And then she would get back to a certain spot and then play the note on the piano that it should be.